Welcome back to the museum, Pot Dose. Last time we went over the upper room, the middle room, and the downstairs. Now we're going to get into the meat of the meat and potatoes, which is the inside of the rooms. So onward you go. I got to back up because I hit my own lamp. The real world is interacting with my virtual experience. Oh no. Let's go that way. So the for no one asked for him to remove the furry trash element to it. So yes, this display was asked to be censored. So this one isn't prominent in the video, and I think we saw it like on this. I think we saw it just on this one, and even on the first one was like the cutesy art, and I think it is visible through the wall. No, it's not. This one is actually removed. So this is like the cutesy bat purple one and stuff like that. So yes, this display was asked to be censored. It seems innocuous enough to have a display filled with cute furry characters, and I felt starting the museum with something easy was the way to go. People did like seeing the cute drawings, especially next to the fursuiter/artist. This display humanized the fandom by focusing on the talents of a single furry. Not the most extraordinary person. Oh, poor person. But the kind of quality of person I believed was admirable. Okay, that's better. Some people took offense to the cute furry depictions, and one person was able to verbalize their belief that people who like cute things are pedophiles and attracts children towards them. I am not sure how hardened this person was in their beliefs, or if they still believe the same today. The history of this mentality aligns with the period termed the animation age ghetto, an awareness from the 1970s through the early 2000s in America that animation was forced to remain a children's-only medium. Authors like Frederick Wertham believed comic books led children to delinquency and homosexuality, while Jack Thompson fought for legal challenges to violent video games, even when no such evidence exists. Yeah, F you, Grand Theft Auto, says Jack Thompson. There's a Grand Theft Auto picture over there with the otters. That one was not censored, to Jack Thompson's dismay. Because Jack Thompson wants that one censored. Why are you not thinking of Jack Thompson? So Jack Thompson was disbarred, by the way. So people who go on crusades can sometimes be taken by them, and Jack Thompson was one of them. The reason he got disbarred was because he had I think he was obsessing over the hot coffee mod for a modification for one of the Grand Theft Auto games, and he literally put pornography into the docket in order to make a quote unquote statement about censorship and people asking for decency and things like that. And it's like, and the court's like, yeah, there's context too, idiot. You just put this in docket, which we have to show to the public. Now we have to put this thing that you put in your court case into a public docket that anybody can access. You know what I mean? And by the way, if in my opinion, court dockets should be 18 plus anyway, because they talk about crimes. I mean, real crimes, real problems. But that being said, he had problems with that. So that's the story of Jack Thompson. Very, very, very prominent cult of personality during my ages growing up. The failure of adult animated features in the United States and parent groups fighting to keep animated content free of LGBTQ themes enforced this position for many years. Some could say it's still quite prominent. Thanks, Elio, I think it was. In Japan, I think there was something he missed here. In Japan, perhaps no, and then it starts with another sentence. This was later broken by the popularity of Pixar pushing boundaries for children's animations and the popularity of anime, which holds no such preconceived notions, with the rise of Astro Boy and Studio Ghibli's productions. In America, Pixar and the popular anime continued to break new grounds for animation, while popularity of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the anime, not the movie, paved the way for more sophistication. The import of animated culture from other nations influenced our culture and today's adults, and less inclined to censorship of animated characters. So, like, obviously, like, the person called, like, here's the thing. I don't think anyone called for censorship of this, and I don't think, like even the person who's saying, well, people who like cute things are peds. It's like, is it like, that's, so obviously I don't, like, that sounds like a troll. Like, why are you even here? Like, cute animal characters and things like that, even from a platonic standpoint, like, not all furries are into it for, NSFW reasons. There's people here who are here for the aesthetic and enjoy it without the the adult themes. Like, so, and there was no adult themes on this thing, and there was nothing even close to adult or suggestive on this thing. So it's like, it seems to me like there was a troll. Like, because here's the thing: if there's gonna be somebody who's trolling you, like, they're gonna play their hand at the first, like, display. So, and this is where, like, the interesting thing about the wheel of, like, expertise I mentioned in the first video. A second one is kind of like a second sort of bar that kind of influences whether one should take the statements or critique or criticism seriously, is a person's good faith. I guess you would call it a measurement of good faith. It's like, is this person giving you something in good faith, or are they giving it you in bad faith and are just like going like, I'm going to do something funny. I know that he gets upset when I call cute things pedovate or something. And so, like, clearly they succeeded a little bit, unfortunately. So if this person was of bad faith, they succeeded. If this person was of good faith, then help them, somebody. One additional thing I'll add to the bottom part, it's an interesting perspective on it. Don't let a good censorship board go to waste to talk about tangential items. But Studio Ghibli and Astro Boy are pretty safe. Like, if anything was something like, oh, cartoons are not made for children. And, obviously there's Omaha the Cat Dancer that push things from the Western perspective. There's a bunch of animes that are more gender or adult, tending towards adult. Akira was a big one. Dragon Ball Z was a big one, because Dragon Ball Z had a lot of violent elements to it. More mature sort of style shows, and even going so far as to adult stuff. So similarly, like, I think anime had a high influence on the furry fandom, so it is a good thing to bring up. And I think, like, the going like, hey, like, because I remember the advertisements for, like, it's raw, this is not just animation, it's anime. That guy with the gruffy voice on, like, the late night television. So, like, that, I think that influence is like, hey, why don't we take the cartoon animals that we grew up in the Western culture and apply anime standards to it, right? And then have a group that focuses on, more mature themes and things like that, and that sort of element. So I think that's a good start, but I think, like, there's a, like, it's the right breadcrumb trail, but it's whitewashing a little bit. Because it's like, it's not talking about that. Now you could say it's because he doesn't want to unmatch the cutesy sort of style of that, and so he's kind of self-censoring those kind of things, and that's fine. So this one, yes, this display was asked to be censored. So for those you don't know, this is the video game board. This is where the stuff downstairs, the stuff fell downstairs, basically. Like, he pushed it back, I think, and some of them fell downstairs. And so there's, like, 3 shelves here. And so we're going to read over his, why was this asked to be censored? Okay, the history of 90s mascot platformers display let many furries relive their favorite games in childhood while learning the real history behind the movements that spawned the plethora of furry video game characters in the 1990s. Older furs might recall their memories with games like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, E.T., Super Mario Bros., and more. As we journey through the U.S. video game market crashed in the 1983 to Conker's Bad Fur Day and the end of the golden age of mascot platformers. While appreciation for this history wanes among different groups, the biggest censor-related criticism he used both words. We're trying to keep those separate, sir. You didn't read my memo. No, just kidding. The biggest censorship-related criticism was the misunderstanding that the middle row of games represents historically significant titles, not specifically furry. The most requested removal was E.T., as some view the character physically repugnant, while not representing the furry fandom in any way. The reason for his inclusion in this place of history, the lessons learned the hard way by the industry for failing to legitimize the costs, ushering the market conditions, and the changes which spawned Nintendo's monopoly and their desires to split that monopoly ushered in the golden age of mascot platformers. And given that sort of like behind the scenes, like, yeah, if you're not reading this stuff, then yes, this middle row is going to be a little bit weird, right? So the top row has all like furry characters and anthropomorphic characters. The bottom row also has characters. And Spyro, by the way, won a recent Ursa Major for old platformer or old furry mascot games. But the middle one here, obviously, is the historical one he's talking about. So he goes from Donkey Kong to Pac-Man to Pitfall. Obviously, like, what does Pitfall have to do with it? So basically, like, Donkey Kong's like arcades. Pac-Man, once again, arcades. Pitfall is like successful Atari. E.T. the Extraterrestrial is like late Atari, like when things are starting to fall apart. And then basically the sort of like the years from 1983 to 1985 where like no one was playing video games on consoles because of that crash. And like, you know, until like, you know, Nintendo localized things in America and made Super Mario Brothers, and then that gave birth to Sonic the Hedgehog, and then Super Mario 64 and Conker's Bad Fur Day. So this is supposed to be like, oh, up to Conker's Bad Fur Day, which, by the way, so my critique, or critique/criticism, not censorship/criticism, because I'm not saying remove this middle row. It's fine. The one thing I will say that is unforgivable, sir. Super Mario 64, really? Super Mario 64? I can't even see my hand past the wall. There it is. Super Mario 64? Why? You're like, oh, well, it's the beginning of 3D gaming. Uh-huh. And what other game came out as an opening title that was co-released with Super Mario 64? What game? Yeah. Star Fox 64. Why is Star Fox 64 not up there instead of Super Mario 64? Censored Super Mario 64. Give me Star Fox 64. Give me Star Fox 64. Okay, I'm being ridiculous. But still, like, you get it, right? It was released at the exact same time for the exact same system as a launch title. And it's more prevalent to furries. Especially since, you know who got second place, who was like chomping at freaking Spyro the Dragon's heels? Star Fox 64. So, like, furries like Star Fox 64. Use it as the example instead. That's all. That's the only thing I'll add. All right. Anyways. Anyway, so yeah, the Grand Theft Auto. It's a very cute picture. And the basketball wasn't asked to be censored. I gotta stop moving around so much. All right, so as I said, there's a lot of censorship in here. So, congratulations to you three for not being censored. Woo. You did it. Anyways, yes, this display was asked to be censored. So there's like two elements to this one. There is Headshots, who was a guest of honor at Furry Pines in the main furry. This is a Philippine. And then Nick the Singing Dog, who was guest of honor 4 times, and the last time was at Garden State FurCon in 2025. But we'll go over that in a moment. So here we go. So this display was asked to be censored. This display was designated to the most popular images of the furry fandom for decades. Nick the Singing Dog, the popular singer-songwriter/platformer from Philadelphia, not the Philippines, but another thing that starts with PHPLL. For some reason, they both start with Phil. It's the two Phils. Okay, I gotta stop doing this. And headshots painted by Than Shu Hai, an artist residing in the Philippines, born and raised. Many people loved the display and saw the images of their own friends used in here. It's also a great display presenting how furries choose to represent themselves. Between the massive amount of headshots and the detailed bibliography of one person, the display tries to quickly get viewers to comprehend a global representation of the community. However, the display was not without its criticism. Some have argued ridiculous claims that that Nick promoted Nazism, and other criticals of the same display were offended by the display of flags of Philippines as representation of artists from other nations. The virtue does not condone discrimination until now. Now, obviously, they're being tongue-in-cheek about the until now with the censorship thing. Now, if somebody's asking you to remove artists from other countries, yeah, that's censorship. That's plain old censorship. So this is, they kind of pop in and pop out. So they pop in about right here. Sorry. There it is. So that's what the display looked like. And then this one had like the Nick the Singing Dog thingy in it. So when it comes to that, right, there's like, he goes over the thing on this. Now, where the misconstruing of the Nick being tied to, where the construing of, I shouldn't know if it's misconstruing or whatever, but where the construing of Nick with promoting Nazism comes from is he did an interview with a group called the Furry Raiders, and I've covered the Furry Raiders on this channel several years ago. They're more in the shadows these days. They tried to make a big convention down in Oklahoma, or a little gathering down in Oklahoma called Free for All, and they were kind of promoting that. But since then, things have kind of died down. And if now they're kind of more to the shadows these days, they still exist. But what I will say is this: like, you could see that Nick was pretty successful, and this is why self-censorship can sometimes detriment a little bit, because none of the things here talk about controversies of people, like the problems they have, and obviously, and there's a time and a place, and maybe this isn't the time and the place, but that's sort of censorship, isn't it? Like, you're censoring that this person, has detractors because they got involved with that. Same with the Garden State Fur for the weekend, right? The particular people are concerned that particular convention was latched on by people who, empathize with the people, with people similar to like the people who are doing the Free for All convention and things like that. That's why you have like the Forget About It versus Garden State FurCon thing, and to be as an asterisk on this thing, to make things even more confusing and to make things even more muddy, is that Sotalis, was a PR person for Garden State FurCon, and in the midst of defending that convention from those detractors who had, from the detractors who are saying these people are tied with these, pro-fascist elements, or have people who have a history of tying to those things, like, we went over that in the previous video. So I don't have like a half-hour video. I won't go over that and my feelings on that. But what I will say is, like, what you can see, and this is just an outsider looking in, and why it's important to discuss these things in a mature way, is this person was on the rise. 2014, 2016, 2018. And these are at Megaplex, FurryCon. Like, the first one I really like, the 2016 one I haven't heard of, for Zonicon. FurryCon I've heard of. Megaplex, it's the top 8 furry convention in 2018. And then basically there's like this big gap, and then Garden State for the Weekend, which has, controversial ties with the same controversies that are being criticized down here. So like the only place you can get a guest of honorship was at a place that, was also dealing with that same criticism. So what I'm saying is like, when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock in the face on the stage at the Oscars. I'm going somewhere with this, I swear. Keep it out of my damn mouth. But basically, Will Smith said that, what's his name? Morgan Freeman came to him after that situation and goes, "You got to be careful when you become successful, because that's when the devil comes for you." And what I mean by that is that the furry raiders are definitely always looking for coattails to climb upon. They even tried to climb upon like my coattails and use my connections and my things, even as small as they are, to try to co-opt people into their ideal and their little gang and their group. If you want to see that in real time and my discussion of it, you can go to my stream of the game Stray, where I confront one of the furry raiders who basically went to my chat and basically got the contact information of one of my people who was watching my chat, and basically talked to them in person, and basically was able to co-opt them into believing their beliefs, to the point where he was saying those beliefs on the internet and not understanding the consequences of saying like beliefs like that, or being co-opted into beliefs like that. So basically he was using the furry raider was using my channel to groom people, and I told him not to do that. And I said, don't talk about your group on my channel. If you do, I will remove you, or any like prominence of that group. We're here to play furry games. And he did. He didn't. Oh, he stayed true to his word and didn't do it in the chat, but he did it outside the chat indirectly to other people. And it's like, no, that's not what I meant. I meant I'm not gonna have you soliciting, my folks, into your little things. And it was kind of a little naivete on my end, because I was like, maybe I can convince him that there's more to furry than just trying to have political power or influence. Which I think the furry raiders kind of wanted power and influence, which is why they kind of bought a bunch of things in the Denver thing, and were like trying to homogenize those things. So no need to reminisce, but basically, when you hide certain things about certain people and the controversies, you don't allow them to grow themselves either. So like you're like, by protecting somebody from their controversies, it's like you're not allowing them to address like the things that people have criticized them for. And so that can always be detrimental to the growth of individuals. You don't have to be a mother hen and defend people when they make mistakes or do things. You need to allow them to make the mistakes and allow them to correct the mistakes. And as the same way with the Paco in the last video, it's like some people, if you correct the mistakes, they're not going to oh wait, this one is different? Oh no, okay, that's a different one. But that's the same as this one. I think Shout Milo's over here too. Yeah, so that's the same as that one. So we'll do the Shout Milo one, I guess, next. Got to keep moving because there's a lot of things to go over. Yes, this display was asked to be censored. Dedicated to Shout Milo, an exceptional, talented U.S. West Coast furry artist. Many works were selected for a presentation for the virtual Furry Museum. Artists loved his work. He was also one of the first popular artists accepted to the virtual Furry Museum. One guest took issue with the fact that Shout Milo created furry art prior to the age of 18 and believed it wouldn't be appropriate to show his art in the museum. So that is an ask for censorship. You're asking to remove something. I can't see Shout Milo's work from here. Maybe I can see his work from here. I guess I can't. But this is why it's like, what is being censored? What is the art that's being censored as well? And that's why it's like, I always try to say censorship sucks and this sucks, but like, yeah, it's like, if you had like a pair of glasses or something, like what was it called? The Hail to the King or whatever they call what the heck's that thing called? The movie called? Like the one with the aliens and stuff like that, and the guy with the sunglasses. Like if you had like a pair of sunglasses that you could see beyond this thing, that'd be cool. But obviously that would be quite a bit of work. I think you moved a lot of things around for this version and made it pretty quickly. So obviously backseat doing, but it would be cool to be able to see like what is being censored other than like having previous knowledge of what was here. So is that censorship? Yes, very much so. If somebody has a beer before they're the age of 21, they should still be allowed to drive a car if they're not drunk. Like it's like it's barely even worthy of discussion in my opinion. It's like, you know, people who are under 18 push the boundaries. And while I as an adult can say, you're under 18, don't do that. Not allowed. And if you're under 18 currently doing it, we're not going to put you up here, right? If your drawing works like that when you're under 18 and you are still under 18, I'm going to yell at you, Mr. Bad, bad, bad. I have to say bad because like that's the whole, like, you have to as an adult, you have to say like these are the boundaries that adults have put on people, and that's important. But once you're over 18, it's like, oh, you bent the rules a little bit when you were younger, okay, but just be careful, because here's the thing: when an adult influences an underage person to do bad things, that is called grooming, and that is called like manipulation. So that's why, as an adult, you have to go no, and you should, you know, it's like don't draw, no, right? Because you can't be seen as influencing them to do things that, you know, they shouldn't be doing at their age. Little boys shouldn't talk like that. You know what I mean? So that's the whole thing. Once they're over the age of 18, though, it's like, okay, well, were these drawings that we're putting up drawn by them when they were under 18? I don't think so. And at this point, they're over 18. They can do what they want. Leave them alone. This is like, obviously, if I said the thing about Paco in the last video, I'm going to say that about that, and that's going to be like even more cut and dry. All right, as I said, moving on because we are still like halfway. As I said, there's a lot of stuff down here, which is why I split into two for you. So this one is the version of color display. This one you can see if you look through. I had my own critique about this one. And my critique was simply that the display has like 6 panels around the middle face here, but at the time I had made the critique, there was only 3. There's now 4, but there's still repeats. So like you have TJ here, who's like that, and then you got Midas, and then we're gonna move over here, and then there's Midas again. So, and then, you know, there's Aryan, and then there's Shaimatsi with their suits, and then there's Shaimatsi again. So like, as you can see, there's 6 displays. There's four furries here. So obviously you can find 2 more. If I may make a critique, if you have Ken Penders, which by the way I didn't look at it last time, but there is a picture of Ken Pender's Fursona up in that old school furry display thingy upstairs. So you have a piece of art of Ken Penders, but Ken Penders would be a good one. And the reason Ken Penders would be a really good one is because Ken Penders is credited with popularizing the concept of incorporating an animal character as an expression of the self, otherwise known as a fursona. So this thing I'm wearing is a fursona. You know, the characters are a fursona. So like having them on this board would absolutely be a good contribution for person of color furries, and particularly one of that much of a historical note. Ash Coyote would have more information about that stuff. If you have access to Ash Coyote or not, I'm not sure. Yes, display was asked to be censored. All right, so why? Why was the fur color? I'm a little scared to read this. Let's see what it is. I pre-read it. I can't act. Sorry. Furs of color represents one of our fandom's most important minorities and their stories, LGBTQ African Americans, having trouble to gain interest in the display during its creation. I sought advice from one African American leader who refused to promote the display, demanding a room and claiming it must represent other races as well. With some of the largest displays in the virtual Furry Museum already dedicated to Hispanic and Asian artists, I insisted that the display remain African American. It seemed most of the requests were attempts to shut me out from presenting minorities that I did not personally belong to. That's assumptuous. But as a museum curator, sticking only with what I know means I would be unable to learn, not teach anything about any minority. Thankfully, I have not dealt with overt racism in Furry Future Museum, but shock does exist among some furries that not everyone active in the furry fandom is white. Anyways, some leaders have promoted the fandom, and some people have promoted the fandom and hosted events for decades. And since the display contains figures that are trans, I have experienced transphobic comments here. It stands to reason the offense may have been the representation of trans individuals and their stories. So, in other words, it seems like more people had problems with a person being trans than being black furry, which is great news. It's progress, and hopefully someday the person will not feel that way about trans people either. It'll just be a normal thing. It's like, so obviously I'm glad. It's like, so I will put an asterisk here a little bit, and this is going to sound a little coy on two things on this one. So criticisms on this one. There are shock amongst furries that not everyone active in the fandom is white. Now, I poked fun at that myself a little bit. It seems kind of weird that anyone would think that, but what is this here for? So that people can learn, right? It's like, hey, look, there are people who are black, who are furries. Woo! Like, hey, your thing is doing its job. Somebody was ignorant to something, and they learned. Like, that's the whole point. A little bit. Anyway, that's one criticism one. And so, like, that's fine. Like, there's no reason to, anyways, number two, the first part, was this asked to be censored? No. Nothing in here really asked it to be censored. There's the insinuation that the African-American leader said that they didn't want this display as it is and they wanted it as a different room. So it's not like they said, well, censor it. They said, well, make it better or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the tone of the conversation was or what any of that is. I'm a fly on the wall seeing one person's perspective of a two-person conversation. But what I can tell you is this. This isn't only critique. This is critique you asked for. You sought it out. You went looking for it. You went, I want to talk to you about this thing that I'm doing. And they said, this is how I would do it. And you said no. That's not censorship. You have the power over your space. And you went for it anyway, which is great. But saying that one person's like, I don't like it like this, I want it like this, isn't censorship. It's especially when you asked for something like that. You asked them for it. So, like, in like the one sentence, like I really don't like it all. Like the one that it's like, it seems most of the requests to shut me out from representing minorities that I don't personally belong to. It's like, why do you feel that way? Like, no, I mean, like, he wants a room, man. Like he probably wanted it to be a bigger display or something, or, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, it's like, if I were like somebody, it's like, I would point out the critique that I pointed out. It's like there's 6 slots here and there's 4 people. Oh, so Ken Penders was one. The other one I would also suggest is it Chase? Scout Chase? No, Scout. I think it's her name is Scout, I think. It's the scientist. Like, so there's a black late woman scientist, furry, who has been pushing for vaccines, especially in this day and age where anti-vaxxers are kind of like taking over the health department of the United States, like a virus. No turn of phrase. So like having Scout in there, having her in there would be a good thing. She tried to, unfortunately, like there was also like the issue with, this is going into another thing, which was, the Howl, what is it called? The Halloween one, where they were like, they were going to make like a person of color run furry convention, as like a small gathering. I can't remember the full name of it, but unfortunately it fell apart. And I think one of the big reasons it fell apart, was because Chice was, I think, a leader in that one. Chice was her name, I believe. Chice was a leader in that. And like, unfortunately COVID happened, and obviously like she was working her butt off, like trying to save us from the COVID virus. And, you know, so like she couldn't do that and volunteer for a furry convention at the same time. And unfortunately, I think the people that were left behind to kind of keep the boat rocking and keep it going for post-convention or post-COVID times didn't do things in the best way. And unfortunately, it turned out for the worse. And it's unfortunate because I think like there was some other furry who was like, what was it called? They were basically like saying that she embezzled, and it's like it wasn't her. Like, so that's sort of like another like controversy that like wasn't really her fault, I don't think. And it's like, anyways, keep going. Yes, this display was asked to be censored. This display is dedicated to Art of Makenda, a contemporary Dutch pagan artist whose works celebrate the culture of classical antiquity, and with 10% of the furry fandom identifying as Wiccan, representation is necessary. The art is beautifully ornate and authentic in presentation, bridging the gap between ancient civilization and today. It was also requested to be censored by a touring group who despised fantastical nudity. Ironically, one of my most conservative friends, a college friend and an art business major from Texas, who wasn't furry, said the very same piece was his favorite in the whole museum. I mean, he's an art major. Art of Makenda's work is indeed anthropomorphic, but not in a popular style. Most considered to be furry. It is beautiful art in its own right. Some fans even said they wished they owned a house large enough to have such a piece hung on their walls on a massive scale. Removing the art removes the representation for furry and all its fans. So this one was a bit risque. I don't know if I can see this one. The Hunt. Yeah, I think these were sketch ones. I don't think I can see the displays, unfortunately, but they were like, ooh, fantasy. Like it was like PG. It was like it was rated T for teen game style like things. All right, this was asked to be censored. Why was this one? Right next to Art of Makenda, I wanted to feature more traditionally furry designs. Some art by Muggy in a retro graphical style, along with a Disney-esque scene, similar to the reservations people had about the cute art at the front of the room. Such views and justification for censorship were also presented here. Oh, it's too cute. Now, to be fair, like this quote unquote cute thing is next to this thing, and maybe this is the wall that juxtaposed those two things. Like if they had complained about it here, I'd make more sense. It's like there's sexy and then there's cute. What do I do? Like, but over there, it's like it's just cute. So I don't know. And this is Shout Milo again. We talked about that one over there. This display was asked to be censored. So this is the old furry one. This is like the Who Sues for a Cow from 1629. This display was asked to be censored. Cornelius Stefan is a Dutch Renaissance painter known for creating hundreds of paintings with animals and characters in depictions of hell. This piece, which chosen for the museum, was a satire of farmers litigating over farm animals beyond their means. There was some notion that only art in the the only art in the Furry Museum must come from the furry fandom post 1970s, an argument of semantics more than value of education. This would be a very limited view and presentation in the scope of the entire museum. The Furry Museum takes a broader view and tries to connect furries of the past, the world today, so it's represented throughout history. So, interesting in that when we had the video upstairs before, when we did the Egyptian things, that no one complained about the Egyptian displays. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, this was actual art by somebody in the past using anthro characters or humanized animals. Oh, like, yeah, that's dumb. It's probably criticism more than anything. It's like, this shouldn't be here because it's not new. It's not our furry. It's some old dead guy. Like, yeah, it's a museum. What do you expect when you're going to a museum? You're gonna see some old dead guys. Anyways, next. Congratulations to this whole side of the room. You are safe, apparently. This side of the room, though. Naughty, naughty. Naughty, naughty. It's like, it's kind of funny that it's just like one side of the room. It's like yin and yang. It's like, and of course, like the professional artist for like the Rock and won a Grammy is fine. It's like, oh, we're fine with the award Grammy winner. Yeah, Spyro's fine. He won an award too. So, anyways, this was the dragon one in the video. This was like the sort of big feral dragon on like not a feral dragon, but like a non-anthroized dragon animal on a rock. So you could probably tell where this is going. This was asked to be censored. Ken Izzo's art piece for this dragon features a fantastic rendering of a dragon resting on a grassy field next to the water in front of an aurora borealis. I'm not making that joke. I lived like an hour from Utica. So yes, I've heard the joke. One user from a mixed furry/non-furry community took significant issue with the figure not conforming to bipedal expectations of furry art. This is sort of like that leg thing I was talking about with that. Like, I love the reflections in the thing, by the way. That's so cool. I always forget it's there until I look down, until I see my legs. So anyways, which I can do on here, not meta. Anyways, back to it. Should not be classified as furries. In truth, the character Waro was commissioned by Fisk and both bipedal and quadrupedal forms. And yes, furries is the term for all fans of all kinds of anthropomorphic animals, whether mammals, avians, reptilians, aquatic, invertebrates, or insects, real or imagined, in any number of legs. Okay, so like using it as an education moment, kind of like a criticism. Like, the problem is like this is, and by the way, this is going to happen just in general, like this sort of criticism where it's like, this is my definition of what I like furry for. This is not my thing. Take it down. Like, not like take it down, but like they're gonna like, though I don't like this thing. Like, that's basically what criticism is. Like, I don't like this thing. If they're asking for it to be taken down, then yes, that's censorship. If they're just saying, I don't like this thing, or I don't think this thing is within the things, that's criticism. Obviously, like, you have to take a wider brush when doing that. So obviously I agree with them fully on that, and there's not much to add. This display was asked for censorship, censor. This is this one. My critique on this one, I recall, was like a lot of the art in this room. If you didn't notice, the cool thing is that there's like sculptures in the main room that bleed into the art. So you have like this one with the little things up top here. You have like the glow sticks hanging from the ceiling and match the colors of the thing. Thunderclouds clapping with the storms. So like these also have that, but obviously he censored the top part of it too. But if you look in here, like mine, this is also Shout Milo's. So this is actually pretty cool. So Shout Milo is really, really good artist. And this is what happens when you allow people under the age of 18 to draw things. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you shouldn't be too harsh on people starting young on drawing things or getting into a hobby, because like this is the quality that you get when you do that. My critique on this was like the stars are very muted in Milo's picture, but the stars like are kind of like glue on stars in the background. They're not like little dots. They're kind of like star shaped. So it like didn't like, it works a little bit. It's still kind of cool, but like it's not as cool as all the other ones. Because it doesn't like quite mesh with the picture quite. But anyways, my criticism aside, or critique or whatever criticism, let's go with Shout Milo. So Shout Milo's practice piece contained no other name or definitions. Features his character Milo, in a desert shouting into the night sky. The piece was added after one fan felt the museum didn't represent their experience or the pain they felt in the moment. So this is interesting because this starts with a fan who is like giving critique. It's like there's too many happy-go-lucky emotions. There's too much quote-unquote positivity in this museum. Can you add a piece that, represents another emotion? And he took it to heart and he acted on it. So great. So then we go, noting how most of the art of the previous rooms featured strong, happy characters, a broken down character and tears was needed for balance. Emotionally gripping but endless in interpretation, Shout Milo's practice became one of the most noteworthy pieces of the museum for touring guests. Unfortunately, such a piece may conjure up some emotions that people would rather not explore or avoid altogether. The piece here did upset a few people. While I cannot get guaranteed every piece of the museum will bring you joy, I hope it brings you to a place where you can reflect on your own emotions, good and bad. That's the most political way to end that. Just kidding. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, and this was in the previous video with the ofrenda downstairs. Some furries are not great at handling the different emotions that people have. So they get a little bit awkward in bad situations. So, it's kind of like it's one of those things. It's like, people want different experiences, but if you go to a museum, you're hopefully a little bit more open to different things and different emotions and different understandings. It's when it comes to curation, that's an important thing. So I'm glad that they did add this for balance in that emotional regard. They followed through with that one thing, and then like as soon as he followed through with one criticism, then the opposite one came. So that's the problem, is like you can't please everybody all the time. But I don't know if that, like, here's the thing though. Like, I will say this, and this is going back to the theme, that criticism, it kind of falls in the line of criticism. I don't think anyone asked for it to be removed or censored. There was a talk about conjuring up negative emotions or people discussing negative emotions, but I don't think, like, in the context of anything, that anyone was asking for any action to be taken to this piece. So I don't think, like, it's saying, oh, it was asked to be censored. It's like, I don't see any evidence of that. Going back to that. So anyways, all right, so yes, this display was asked to be censored. So this one was interesting because I didn't know about this one. I saw this one. This was the one with, like, the crystals and the shadows and things like that. And this is cool when I learned about it because this, funnily enough, it's like sometimes I don't even read the full stuff and or it retains or I forget it. This one was apparently a screenshot from VR chat that was done in an artistic manner, and apparently somebody had a problem with that. So here we go. Punky's Crystal Abyss is a gorgeous VR chat photo of a tiger bee entering a crystal cavern. The artist beckons a story to be told that can only be written by the observer. The art glistens enigmatically in the room. Unfortunately, some have taken the fact that this is a VR chat photograph as a mark against the effectiveness of the piece. In one case, somebody used it as an excuse to attempt to getting themselves replaced on the display. Why don't you take my photo and put it on the museum? Am I not museum worthy enough for you? So this goes back to like the whole, like, is this person trying to be helpful, or are they being a troll? Slash, is this like useful in any way? And obviously, like, were they asking for it to be censored? This one, like, they were definitely being. It sounds like in that short sort of blurb, it does sound like they were being critical to the point of like, this shouldn't be in this museum because it's not good enough for it or whatever. So there is that element, and that judgment. So yeah, I mean that could fall in that category, depending on how it was done. But the funny part about like being asked to be put in there instead, kind of shows a little bit of the person's hat. It's like, hey, why don't I get to be in this museum? It's like, is there like some sort of jealousy in there? It's like, oh, it's like, we're gonna take screenshots. Just take it's kind of silly, but that one I could see it falling in there. It's not. It's kind of critical for dumb reasons. Not really like. I guess you could say, well, they offered to take their picture instead. So they're giving an offering. So that's, critique. It's like, that doesn't improve things. Like, all right, if you want to take a photograph of your friends and make it artistically talented, go ahead, screenshot it and send it my way. But it's probably going to be bad. Probably. I don't know. Some people just want the platform. Congratulations to both of you. But I'm still like, why is there no why is the utility pole far away from the buildings, and there's a transformer but there's no lines, and there's like, and why is it, yeah, I know what they were going for. It's fine. Censor. Like, if I were to look at, by the way, but then again, like, this is supposed to be a D&D Wasteland Wanderer, so this is like Fallout New Vegas. If I were to look at the game of Fallout New Vegas, there'd probably be random utility poles strewn about with no like connection to anything. So, you can only use them. It's blame the source material. Anyway, all right. So we have two more to go. Actually, only two more. Two of them are redundant, so these two are the same, and then this one is the big one. So I'll leave that one for last. So this one is interesting. These are the two Hearthfox displays. So Hearthfox is an astonishing full-time furry fandom artist and Therian. Their depictions of Therianopathy received acclaim from the community as a representative of their experiences. The presentation of our tours are lauded by other Therians. Someone warned me about Hearthfox's inclusion in the museum and requested censorship. When I asked for a reason, they didn't provide any. The interesting thing is that the Hearthfox, if you recall, was a guest of honor at Anthrocon. I can't see it; it's too close in there. But if I move over here, I think you should be able to see. And it doesn't have. Oops. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, they were guest of honor at Anthrocon, Anthro New England apparently, and Furry. So I'm the her saying she's a guest of honor at Anthrocon was a Mandela effect or some mismemory on my part. I knew they were a guest of honor at that point. But like the thing she was known for, particularly around one of the Anthrocons, was the sort of marionette style like puppetry that she did with the fox thing. That being said, like there was some weird internet drama that happened a few years back where like Hearthfox did something, or like there was some bad blood somewhere. I can't remember the details. It was sort of an interpersonal dispute, and it kind of blew up into a bigger thing. And I think that's the thing that happened. Like the interesting thing about furries, and one of the trickiest things about furries is they definitely take certain animal characteristics into heart, and one of them is like as soon as there's any alarm or any like conflict or anything like that, there are some furries who will run for the dang hills, and they will not look back. and they will block everything and remove everything, and some for good reasons, some for less good reasons. And some furries address that through art, and Hearth Fox, I believe, is one of those people, right? With the ones over here that we can probably still see, right? The whole this one. Oh no, there it is. That one, yeah, like where the characters kind of pulling themselves apart with the colors there. That's obviously indicative of some sort of traumatic experience, and putting it into art form. So I think that was the issue, is the person who's oh no, Hearth Fox, that's a name I heard. I'm not supposed to like that name. And that can sometimes happen. It happens and it doesn't matter your political affiliations. Hearth Fox is definitely an anarchist, very punkish, kind of very leftist kind of person. And we talked about Nick the Singing Dog back there, but it works in that way too, right? Where it's that sort of, it can happen to anybody, and it happens, right? People might not be able to recall why it happens, but it happens. So the final one, the big one, the one that nobody would be surprised about at all, is the sort of the display of PG style, sort of kink-esque kind of things. So usually they're keywords that are for hypno, pause and tickling, age regression, and inflation. So that's what that looked like. Those were not removed. But the funny thing is that his display in there says, I confirmed with the VR chat that these ones were fine to put up here. So obviously this is the most hated one, and he's probably going to talk about that. So no display in the virtual Furry Museum has received more censorship requests than the art in the subculture exhibit. And of all the pieces of art in the display, the most requests given were for a single image representing the concept of age regression, depicting an adult rabbit staring in the mirror at a younger version of themselves in a diaper looking back. While no art in the virtual Furry Museum depicts violent imagery or heinous behavior, the contests against this piece and this display are largely ideological in nature. Most requests come through in the form of, "We're sorry, but we need you to censor this display per our rules." Usually rules make mention of sexual content or disturbing imagery, but fail to explain how the depiction of communities or the art itself is either sexual or disturbing. Judgment comes hard and fast without reason, much like prejudices and discrimination. On tours, the displays have information and have informed how, the displays have informed how these communities are helping people cope through trauma, seek comfort from escapism, and find more affirming friends. The presentation here has been the reasons for many to claim fandom saved their life, and this display is the only representation of many communities in one exhibit. Regarding the entire display, I asked those who made censorship requests with which pieces they were uncomfortable with, and everyone pointed to one or two while affirming that they were okay with the rest of them. This reveals to us the problems behind censorship. What is okay to one person might not be for the other. Biasing only for those for whom take issue and promote censorship yields the problems of censorship, the removal of the whole display and the communities from the virtual Furry Museum. It also removes our educational presentations of these communities. I received a glowing admiration from a furry father who presented this exhibit to his daughter as a safe and curated way to introduce her to the fandom subcultures and LGBTQ history. The same day, I was to present Silas's memorial to a creator community on the 1-year anniversary of Silas's passing. It was removed from the rotation unless this display, not even intended to be presented that day, was removed. I was given no warning in advance, and the result eliminated knowledge and time of reflection between both furry, anime, and furry fans across the entire community. I mean, if I'm reading that correctly, what he's saying there is that like it seems like they're like, hey, we want to see your Silas thingy, and then you're like, well, we want you to remove this part of the museum, or we're not going to go look at Silas's thing. Like that's censorship. That is capital C censorship. That is like if it's like, hey, like you can ask, it's like, hey, like we like our community doesn't like those like we don't like kink stuff and we don't like to talk about kink stuff. Could you like rope off this area or something and we'll go downstairs and do that, but you don't have to remove it and do that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a little bit better than like, but it sounds like they were trying to use the leverage of their community to try to change what the displays were on the thing. And that is like what I don't know what they call it, leverage. That is kind of like that is the biggest C censorship I've read all things throughout this whole thing. In the same day, and then like using and that almost might even cross into like another thing, which we, as I said, that reminds me, at the end of this I need to show you the rest of the wheel. So tolerance to their child. So in the same day I had received admiration from a furry parent teaching tolerance to their child, I had faced intolerance from a large, well-known community in VR chat. This display was also used as an excuse to ban the virtual Furry Museum from the votes it rightly received during the second round of voting in the VR Community Awards 2026 for the best virtual experience, despite it also being the reason why many people considered virtual Furry Museum tour to be the greatest experience they had in VR chat. So that one is also like organizational leverage. I don't think it, like my personal opinion, is not as bad as like the people coming in saying, well, we won't use your thing if you don't get rid of that thing. Like a voting system is allowed to curate what and they do and do not want in their thing. That's fine. It's like, it's one of those things you have to understand. It's like, if like, and this is the whole thing when somebody uses leverage like that, it's like, you're not going to change who you are simply because, for some like to you, like they're not like, it's kind of using like a carrot on the stick. It's like, well, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're gonna take this carrot away. It's like, then take the carrot away, right? It's like this the intent, if the intent and purpose is for this to teach people about the different aspects and different subject matters in which furry works can cover as far as conceptuality goes, then, and that's the important thing, then obviously like you gotta stick to your guns. So it says, too often we look at our subculture through the lens of kink and sex as something to be ashamed of or looked on with disgust, but very rarely do we look at these subcultures or the art with an eye for education, for how these communities are helping people. The stories presented in the museum are true. These communities save lives in too many ways to count. People turned away from suicide once they learned to accept themselves and received help in doing so. Their depression was alleviated, knowing they were not alone. And understanding the mechanics of these subcultures replaces the wild, imaginative misconceptions of so many people with the mundane truth. People need an escape, a reprieve from the stressful, judgmental world they confronted with every day. And it's through our many subcultures that so many furries find that escape. Every museum in the world has art that people may not feel comfortable with, but too many furries found their comfort, affirmation, representation, education in this display for any censorship request to be honored. So, critique. One more. I get like two more critiques, I guess. One is, like, he ends this with like a very like absurd, like a very standoffish, like, this will not be censored, but the whole thing is supposed to be like that. And given like the whole like we didn't want to censor these things until now, right? Like the whole like tongue in cheek, like, oh, this is the world after it got censored, to like we will not be censored is kind of like the tone is not quite meshing. But I get what you're doing. I get why this display has got you like that feeling that way and that kind of thing. So that's fine. just a little like a silly like objection kind of thing. Um, so, this middle part, I do have one critique on, and it's an important critique, and I think it's a good one to end off with. So I'm going to read the last few sentences of this. And it's like, well, there's people who want to censor, these things should be censored, but these things shouldn't be censored. So furries want a curated experience. And I think that's why E621 is very popular, is because the tag system is so good on that site that you can add tags, remove tags. And so like you can actually curate and get down to the nitty gritty of what you actually want to see. And it's a curated and individual experience. Like if you're looking, like if furry A who's looking for that might not be looking for that. You know what I mean? And so like furries are treating this display as if it's E621. Like they're used to being able to curate things, their experiences and their likes and dislikes, to the point where, if they're seeing things in a broader context, that gets a little like, oh, I don't want to see that, but I want to see that. Like it's kind of like one of the silly things. But more importantly, like this idea, it's like that. I think it's an important idea to understand. It's like, well, one person wants you to censor one thing and the other thing. But the final sentence of it kind of gives me some vibes that are and sort of present this whole thing in the whole context here. It says, biasing only for those for whom take issue and promote censorship yields the problems of censorship. The removal of the whole display and communities from the virtual Furry Museum. It also so that right there. So what he's saying is, well, if you want me to censor one thing, I'm going to censor everything. It's sort of like that whole like throw your hands up kind of moment. And, it can be frustrating, and that's fine. But you didn't censor everything, number one. I could still see some displays here. But number two, like, it's not a good idea. Even if you are being censored and you do, like, you have to understand when it's like, oh, how can you capitulate, but also how do you keep the community alive? Sometimes it's not so simple as to either A, put your foot down, or B, capitulate entirely. Sometimes you have, like, you to keep a community alive, sometimes you have to play that middle. Like going like, okay, we will not display this, but we will display this. Like we're like, this is the line in the sand that we will not cross, right? And it depends on, once again, the leverage, right? That we had two instances of like censorship via leverage in here with the voting thing and that. So understanding voting via leverage is an important thing, especially when we're going to talk about. So I will come out to the final thing, and we will talk about the final thing. We're going to show the big wheel here. So I'm going to head back to the middle here, and we'll finish it off by showing you the rest of the wheel. And I'll talk a little bit. So I guess, like, why is it, and I think this is an important question to ask, why is it that people often confuse, what's it called? Need to go into, all right, well, I can edit that out. If you want an outtake thing, I'll find an outtake file at some point. But this is not in the right direction. Whee! All right, there we go. Hey, now we can move down a little bit up because I gotta like put up the thing. So there's more to the wheel, and a lot of people are like, well, why do some people, and this is just an overall view, is that sometimes it's easy to confuse critique and criticism and things. There's multiple reasons for this. Some of them are innocuous, like how we discussed earlier that, how different people might have different intent. So like a person critiquing you might have something else in mind or actually want you to do something else. And they might even act buddy-buddy like that, like the whole like censorship thing we did via leverage. Like, hey, we're going to introduce you to this community. Hey, our community wants to join your community. But then they like kind of go in and like, yeah, but we want you to change this thing before we even engage further, right? So they're kind of using the leverage of sociality to kind of use that, and that's kind of an issue when it comes to censorship. That is censorship. But a lot of the things on display weren't necessarily censorship. Some of them were critique. I think the least offensive one was the person of color display. Like, you asked somebody an opinion, they gave you an opinion, and then you ignored their opinion. Sorry, that's not censorship. So why is it, though, that, and this happens in the fandom quite a bit, why do people confuse critique, criticism, and censorship? Why do people view them as the same, as innocuous words? Even one of the displays in here actually used criticism / censorship interchangeably, or I think one even said critique or criticism and kind of used them interchangeably. Why do we use them interchangeably? Well, my opinion on this is that there's also another element to this wheel that I showed you earlier. And this is where I get to pull this up a little further. There's more parts of this wheel. There's commend that falls under critique before critique. And then after censorship comes criminalization and then cleansing, which, as a survival mechanism, one can understand why people get a little sensitive about the concept of censorship, particularly when adults are doing things that are non-harmful activities that other people want to perceive as harmful. Because it can lead down to people pushing more, hey, we were able to censor them. Hey, we were able to do that. Now we want to go push it one step further. Let's criminalize it. And then even when it's criminalized and people are locked away, then they want to push it even further and go like, hey, we should cleanse that, the undesirable folks, right? So I think it's a survival mechanism. This is why a lot of people are sensitive to the concept of censorship, because they know that it can lead to, saying like, hey, we shouldn't talk about those kind of people here, leads to, hey, we shouldn't have those kind of people here. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like the gap between those two things is closer than some people may realize. On the other side, obviously, we have commend, which I didn't talk about on here either, which is basically yes man, unapologetic, like, this is excellent. Everything is awesome. You're such a great person. Oh, everything you make is the greatest, and it's so wonderful and awesome. Oh, I can't get enough of your stuff. I love everything about everything you ever do. And sure, I mean, obviously, because that's not critique. That's like yes manning. And by the way, like yes manning, the interesting thing is like, and this is where motive comes into play and why the wheel is a little more a wheel-like. Like, if you have somebody in the commend slot that's like closer to the center and jump to like censorship, that sort of reminds me of that like sort of censorship via leverage thing that we talked about earlier, where it's like, hey, like, we like your museum and we want to hang out in this one room, but if you would get rid of that other thing for us, then we'll be your best friend forever. Like, motivations. So like, you have to be careful about a person's motives, what they're looking for, and you have to make those assessments, and that is a challenging thing. Mankind, over the course of its history, has portrayed the powers of gods, and and this is kind of a weird tangent, but I think it's a good finalization kind of thing to talk about it. We as a species have created a situation where, like, we had a god, like in our historical monotheistic sort of religions, we had like gods of fire, lightning and water and all these forces that we didn't really have a great understanding of. We've kind of been rid of that. Instead, now what we find ourselves with a lot of monotheistic religions, and usually if there's any theme that one god typically follows under, whether it's Christianity, Islamic, any of those things, usually judgment is a very big, like, innocuous thing, right? This character has perfect judgment. Because humans still don't. We have to make judgment calls. We have to make judgment calls on what censorship, critique, and it is our ability. If you make good judgment calls about what's actually critique, what's actual criticism, what's actual censorship, what the motivations of the person in front of you actually is, then you're going to go further than if you assume the worst of everything and then just kind of like allow yourself to be shut in for it. And I think that if there's anything to take away from this, it's that I don't think this person's going to stop creating. I don't think they're going to stop curating for their museum. And sometimes they will back horses that many people say shouldn't be backed, and they'll or organizations that he doesn't understand why they're involved in this thing or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think that hopefully, we can understand more and, make a better community, and not by griping about, random things like, hey, I want your opinion on something. Oh, how dare they give me their opinion on something? And more like the stuff of the final display. Because once we do that, we'll be able to make a better thing for it. But anyways, this is a long one. And if you made it all the way here, congratulations. You made it. You did it. Anyways, I'm going to get the hop out of here. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm going to go find my maze. Where did I park my car? Car, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Another dead end. All right, let's get back. Ah, there it is. There it is.